A few months ago, I shared the things that I don't buy anymore as a nutritionist, but there are a lot of things that I buy a lot more of now that I am a nutritionist. So today I'm gonna share with you the 10 things I buy a lot of as a nutritionist. My name's Autumn and I'm a certified clinical nutritionist with my master's in nutrition human performance. And today's video is sponsored by LMNT. More on them in a bit. Okay, the first thing that I buy a lot of are like various testing kits. I'm very data driven. I like to see how things are progressing and what the changes for my lifestyle are actually doing to my health and wellness goals. So one of the testing kits I kind of use like on and off depending on like if I'm testing something out currently, is some type of glucose and ketone monitor. This one that I have is like the old school, old generation Keto Mojo. They have a newer one. This one I think is like 6 years old. Still use it. I still have some of their strips and it's still good. And then this is the little lancet that goes along with it. But I like to test my blood sugar levels, especially lately. I've been kind of tinkering with my after meal blood sugar levels. So it's called postprandial blood sugar. And it gives you an idea of if you're insulin resistant and how well your body's actually clearing out that glucose. What I like about this one is you also can test ketones, which I was doing a lot more earlier on when I first started using intermittent fasting like 7 years ago, which can also be useful for seeing if your body is burning fat as fuel during the fasted state. It's also kind of a roundabout way of getting an idea of your state of insulin resistance as well. So I'm actually gonna probably upgrade this one pretty soon because it is a little old. The other testing kit that I like to use more so lately is an at-home blood pressure cuff. This is the one I use. I like that it's really simple. You just put it onto your wrist, click the start button, and that's it. Blood pressure is another one of those great things just to keep an eye on, just because it gives an idea obviously for heart health risk, but also kind of an idea of insulin resistance, because that's often something that happens with insulin resistance is that blood pressure goes up. So oftentimes I've seen with a lot of my clients, you can see more immediate benefits and results in terms of blood pressure readings when you go to change your diet versus some of these other tests. Plus, if you get that like white lab coat syndrome, which is definitely something that I'll get, where you get like a little stressed or anxious when somebody else is doing your test and therefore can get different readings. It's nice to have one at home where you can test multiple times throughout the day to get an idea of what your true blood pressure is actually. Okay, the other at-home option I have is my Fitbit. Now, obviously I'm not buying this every day, but I do buy this once every like 2 years or so. I take it off while I'm filming because otherwise I get like 1,000 steps just from waving my hands. But it is something that I use every day because I do like to get that data of how much I'm stepping, how often I'm stepping throughout the day. It alerts me to make sure I'm actually being active throughout the day and not just sitting for long stretches of time. Plus, if I'm curious about my like sleep data lately, then I'll wear it to bed for like a week to just get an idea of what my REM, my deep sleep, my light sleep is, how much I'm sleeping, the quality of it. So using these 3 different things really helps to give me a better idea of where I'm at and what I need to work on. Okay, the second thing I buy a lot of, and I just had to go grab it, is garlic. Now, obviously, there's the culinary purposes and garlic tastes amazing. And I do use garlic in pretty much everything, but I also use it for when I'm recovering from a cold or to help recover from a cold faster. Garlic has some really great natural antibiotic, antiviral, antifungal properties. You can probably tell I'm just recovering a little bit from a cold right now, and I've been taking daily just like 1 or 2 cloves of garlic raw, which can be a little rough, but oh my gosh, it helps me recover from colds so much faster. So we always have garlic on hand, not only to make meals taste great, but also for those situations where if we're feeling a little under the weather, we'll have a clove of garlic. It's intense, but it works. Okay, the third thing we buy a lot of, like a lot in this household, is butter, specifically grass-fed butter. I've recently switched over, not like super recently, probably in the last like 6 months, 8 months? I don't know, it's been a little bit, but I've switched over to the Kirkland grass-fed butter brand from the Kerrygold. I used to use a lot more olive oil and I still use it for my salads. I'll use it in some of my cooking, but I like to use butter because it is actually more saturated, which with cooking is a good thing. That means that you get less oxidative damage from the fats, from the heat. Plus, grass-fed butter is really rich in vitamin K2, which is so important for bone and heart health. I talk so much about it on my channel, and a lot of people are not getting nearly enough vitamin K2. One of the easiest ways is through grass-fed dairy products, including grass-fed butter. So we use a lot of grass-fed butter in this household. Okay, the fourth thing that I use a lot of is salt. I definitely use a lot more salt than I did pre-nutrition schooling because I've just found it is so important, so vital for the body and its various functions. Now, obviously, if you're hypertensive, if you already have high blood pressure, then you probably don't need to actively be adding in salt because the body is already holding on to so much salt and water, likely from the high insulin level, although that's a different conversation. But I eat a mostly whole foods diet. I'm very active. I walk a lot, I exercise, I intermittent fast, and I generally eat meals that are fairly lower in carbs. All of this amounts to not eating a lot of salt from the diet because most of the salt people get is from really highly processed foods, which I don't really eat, but it also increases my salt needs even further because I'm sweating, because I'm releasing excess water and sodium by intermittent fasting and eating a more whole foods, lower carbohydrate diet. So I salt everything to taste. I use a high quality salt. And then on top of that, I also use a high quality electrolyte, today's sponsor, LMNT. I'm actually currently drinking it right now. This is the orange flavor, but they have so many other different flavors. I just grabbed a couple from my pantry in the back. As you can see, it actually contains the sodium, the magnesium, and the potassium to help replace lost electrolytes. It also doesn't have any sugar, which I'm a huge fan of, so it actually supports wellness goals as well. And electrolytes are so important for helping to prevent headaches, muscle cramps, low energy levels, and even constipation. And I find that if I am a little low in energy or I have a little bit of a headache in the afternoon, it's probably because I didn't eat enough salt. And that's definitely when I reach for an LMNT to top off my day, and I feel so much better almost immediately. I bring LMNT with me everywhere I go, whenever I travel, when I go to work out. It comes in a handy little package that I can use whenever I need it so that I can make sure that my electrolytes are balanced and I'm feeling really great. Typically I use 1, sometimes 2 LMNTs per day, depending on how I'm feeling that day. And some of my favorite flavors lately, I've actually kind of been going back and forth. For a while, lemon habanero was my absolute favorite, and now I've been really going back to loving kind of the more original orange and raspberry salt, but I definitely switch it up. And right now, LMNT is offering my viewers a free sample pack with any order. That's 8 single-serve packets free with any LMNT order. It's a really great way to test out all 8 flavors, so you can get yours at drinklmnt.com/autumn. It is only available through my link, so make sure to check out drinklmnt.com/autumn. I'll also have the link down description below. Okay, the 5th thing that I buy a lot of are mason jars. I use these for everything. I use them to drink water like I am right now because normal water cups are really small. And having mason jars makes it a lot easier to drink a lot more water. I also use mason jars to make homemade sauerkraut, to store my homemade Greek yogurt, or even to store leftovers. Or I have this really cute little mason jar that I use for my homemade zero sugar strawberry jam. I'll definitely buy different mason jars or different brands of mason jars, or I'll even just save leftover coconut oil jars and just clean them out and just reuse those. Okay, the 6th thing that I use and buy a lot of is protein powder. This is something that I wish I used a lot more of when I was younger, especially when I was first training for my triathlon and marathons. My muscle recovery would have been so much better. But also for preventing sugar cravings. If you guys saw my recent sugar detox series, then you know how important high quality protein is for preventing sugar cravings. And I used to have so many sugar cravings because I was under consuming on protein, like vastly under consuming on protein, which most people are, and they just have no idea. It's not until you actually calculate how much protein your body needs and then you actually see what that looks like in a day for meals where you realize like, wow, I need more protein. So that's where I love having a high quality protein powder. Obviously, I use my zero sugar, pasture raised whey isolate protein powder. Super clean, tastes really great, and it's so easy to add in an extra 10 or 20 grams of protein to help top off for the day. I'll stir my protein powder into my Greek yogurt to help really boost the protein content of my Greek yogurt bowl, or into chia pudding, or my grain-free oatmeal, or obviously a smoothie, which is something that I pretty much have every single day. Which if you guys want to check out my zero sugar protein powder, it tastes amazing. The community has been loving it. And each bag also comes with 10 free recipes for you to experiment with and try out. I'll have my zero sugar protein powder linked down description below if you guys want to check that out. But you can also find it at autumnlnutrition.com/shop. Okay, the next thing that I buy a lot of are sparkling water replacements. Don't know if that's like really what you'd call it. We go through a lot of sparkling water in our house and we just make it at home. We used to buy the big like glasses, but I realized I was spending like $60 a month just on sparkling water, which just seemed unnecessary and painful. So instead I got a SodaStream, and we go through about one of these canisters a month. So I think it's like $14 a month. And I'll have at least one glass of sparkling water every single night. It's just such a refreshing thing to have at the end of the day, and a great alternative to having alcohol or or some type of sugary drink or soda alongside dinner. Okay, the 8th thing that I buy a lot of are chia seeds. I use chia seeds every single day, whether it be in a smoothie, in a chia brekkie bowl, in a chia pudding. It's just a great way to sneak in a lot of fiber as well as ALA, which is the plant-based omega-3. Okay, I had to grab a couple, but the 9th thing that I buy a lot of, like an absurd amount, are nutrition books. So obviously I went to school for undergrad and masters for nutrition and dietetics and nutrition and human performance. I still have a lot of my textbooks that I keep and I reference, and they are really useful, especially like anatomy and OChem and biochem. But I also like to read books from other people in the field to kind of get different perspectives and see what makes sense and what I might not agree with. So I literally have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different nutrition books that I've read over the years that I still keep because I like to reference them. And there are a lot that either were just not great science or I disagree with, but I still like to reference because I know a lot of people in the community do still read these books, and I want to be able to have an educated opinion on these books as well. But there are a few that have been like really transformational for me. More recently, Sacred Cow. I've talked a little bit about this book on my Instagram stories, as well as I think on YouTube. This one goes more into some topics of nutrition, but also some spaces of like the environment and how animals and agriculture really affects the environment in maybe a way that you didn't expect, especially how regenerative agriculture can possibly be really helpful. So this one I read a few years ago, came out a couple years ago. It's great. Another one that really transformed my way of thinking is kind of an older one, but it's The Big Fat Surprise. One of the most well-researched books I've ever read. This is especially a great one if you are concerned about like saturated fats or just animal products in general. This goes over with a fine-tooth comb every single major research study and even smaller research studies on that topic and kind of the history of it and how we got to the point of where we are on the cholesterol and saturated fat. I can't talk. Saturated fat conversation. And then the other one is a much lesser known one, but I think is definitely worth mentioning because I loved it, was the vitamin K2 and the calcium paradox. This one is also a bit older, but it gave me so much insight on vitamin K2 and how it relates to calcium and vitamin D and how so many people are missing out on this and how it's super crucial to be actually getting with our diet so we can help prevent issues with osteoporosis and heart disease. So those are just a few of my favorites, but I literally have hundreds, and I've read pretty much every single one, ranging from like China Study and Blue Zones to some of these others. So I've got a lot. Okay, the 10th thing that I buy a lot of, and this is something that I buy way more now than I ever did when I was not a nutritionist, and it's dairy products. Growing up, I just didn't eat dairy. I was vegetarian, but I didn't really eat much dairy because my mom didn't buy it. But especially in the last, like, I would say 4-ish years or maybe 5 years, and especially after learning the importance of vitamin K2, I've been eating so much more dairy in low lactose forms. So I make my own homemade Greek yogurt, which I actually just finished another batch this morning. It's also really easy to make, and I've done a YouTube video on. Check that out right here. Honestly, it's gonna save you like $400 or $500 a year. It's nuts. I eat cottage cheese. I'll have kefir. I use heavy cream and coffee. Typically, I'll have it with 1 to 2 meals per day, if not 3 meals. Adding in these various dairy products has made it a lot easier for me to hit my daily protein needs, but also make sure I'm getting really high quality sources of calcium and vitamin K2. And because I stick to the low lactose options, I'm not really drinking milk. I'm mostly having these other either fermented or aged products. I'm not breaking out from it, and I'm not getting bloated from it. In fact, there are actually so many misconceptions around dairy and the idea that dairy is just like across the board bad. I feel like especially in recent years that has kind of been perpetuated. I mean, that's what definitely prevented me for a really long time from eating dairy, was a lot of those myths. So if you guys are like a little concerned about dairy products, make sure that you check out my video where I really crack down on a lot of these dairy myths and the really amazing science-backed benefits of dairy with this video next. Also, if you're new to my channel and you love this science-backed information, make sure you subscribe right here. Come out new videos every Tuesday and Thursday. All right, guys, thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in my next video.